right, and we are back for another episode of Beyond the Skills podcast, where we talk about drugs, rock and roll, prostitutes, communism, corrupt politicians, entrepreneurship, and most importantly, real estate investing. But we're back here with a good buddy of mine. You probably may or may not recognize him. He's actually partners with another guy that came on this podcast, Mr. Eric Klein. They're partners in a wholesaling business, and he has an amazing story to tell you guys about, entrepreneurship, real estate investing, how he got into this industry, how they scaled one of the fastest, biggest wholesaling operations that I've seen to date. And I've been in this industry a long time, and he's going to tell you his whole backstory, where he started, where he is today, and how he got there. Mm-hmm. Tony, awesome to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is my second time in Louisiana. Didn't know what to think down here, but man, when I woke up this morning, it was a beautiful day. People are friendly. There's good-looking women down here. Is that okay to say?
That is a fact. There's very good looking women around here.
Yeah.
People have this misconception about Louisiana. That's alligator. People chasing raccoons and squirrels. And picking up roadkill and skinning it.
That's what I was expecting. Yeah. But yeah,
it's a little further south by the swamp.
Yeah.
It does get like that.
Yeah, but thanks for having me, man. This is great. Yeah, love doing podcasts, and can't think of a better one to do right now.
Yeah, well, I think we met at an event.
I think we met at Carlos Reyes event, and that must have been in like Phoenix a few years back, and you were one of the speakers there. I mean, I had never heard of you, and then you go up there, and you were, me and Eric's favorite speaker of the event, because we're like, that's the realest dude we've seen so far at any of these events. Like, there was no bullshit. It was all just like, this is, like, you're just not sugarcoating anything. Right. And I think that vibes with us, because we do the same thing. That's just our personalities. And we definitely connected there. Came out to one of your masterminds in Destin, where we were just there, as viewers, and you had a ton of great, speakers and stuff like that. So, here we are a couple years later, and it's come full circle. Yeah.
Now you're teaching.
Yeah. And like back then, it was kind of the beginning of our journey here in the wholesaling business and real estate and everything. And like, I never expected to be coaching or teaching or anything like that, but it kind of by default happened because I was at a small mastermind in San Diego within the first year of doing this, and it was like 50 people there. Eric was kind of given like a 15-20 minute speech about, our business, and people kept asking about dispositions. He's like, you're gonna have to talk to Tony about that. That's what he handles. So I kept answering all these questions, and then at the end of the presentation that day, like 5 people came up to me and they're like, hey, can we jump on a Zoom? I need to learn what you guys are doing. And I said, you know what, instead of all these individual Zooms, let me put a link out there on social media. For $300, I'll spend 2 hours and teach you guys our process. And this is when I had like 1,000 followers on Instagram, and 100 people paid and showed up to that first Zoom, which blew my mind. And that was where I was like, all right, I see a huge opportunity here to teach the community, how to scale your disposition team and a wholesale company in general the right way. Because, in 2021, when we got into the industry, everybody was just order takers for the hedge funds and their big buyers. They were basically like, hey, what do you guys want to pay? All right, I'll just get it a little cheaper than that. It was a lot easier back then.
Yeah, like if you had a cell phone and a pulse, you could make money in real estate.
I always say you could have rolled out of bed back then and made $25,000 if you were wholesaling. That's right. It was way too easy, and people's processes were lazy, and without that resistance, you're not going to gain those muscles to skill up. Yep. And with Eric's sales process and everything he brings to the table in acquisitions, I have to mirror that in dispo. And I came from an industry that was all in-person retail and wholesaling bicycles and distributing bicycles, where I was driving up and down the coast of California and out to Arizona to bike shops saying, hey, buy my product in person. And I learned sales that way. So to jump in the wholesaling space, and no better person than Eric Klein to have as a business partner, where I could kind of mirror what he was doing on that side of things, bring my skill set into the industry, and really come up with a good process. And then it was just very apparent there's not really anybody teaching dispositions.
Well, y'all's background prompted y'all to become how successful y'all are today.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that because they need to know the backstory to know the story of how y'all got to where y'all at today, because there's a reason why you and Eric did so well.
Yeah.
That people that don't know, that need to know. There's a great story.
Yeah.
That we get into. So let's back up. Who is Tony Mont? Then let's go all the way through the cycle and where we are today. So
Sure.
we get a real good understanding.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I always say, you know, my superpower is, you know, hitting rock bottom. And that's exactly what happened. And for the viewers that saw the podcast he did with Eric, he had kind of a similar story to mine because we grew up together. We were roommates back then at the lowest point of our lives. And, you know, we both grew up in Rockford, Illinois, very blue collar town. You know, I grew up, my grandparents were immigrants, you know, my family, very blue collar. I went and saw, you know, my mom get her GED when I was like 14. She didn't graduate high school. My dad worked in a factory for 35 years. You know, that was it. You know, my grandparents barely could read or write. They came over and just never went to school. So there was no like stress of education or anything like that. It's just like, you know, do your best. And I had just a lot of little trauma that kept happening in my life. And one of my best friends died in high school. And that was really like what triggered, you know, drug and alcohol addiction to me. Somebody said the other day, you know, I didn't truly suffer from my addictions until I got clean and sober. And that like kind of triggered something in my mind where it's like, yeah, the disease is the trauma that you went through, and the alcohol and the drugs is the, you know, what you're doing to mask that trauma. And you don't realize it again until you get clean and you're like, oh, this is still really hard. I still got to get through all this trauma. But I was self-medicating, and one thing led to another.
Yeah, was this how it worked?
This would have been, so basically from 2001 to 2005, I was heavily addicted to drinking and doing cocaine. Was kind of my drug of choice.
2001 to 2005.
Oh, to 2005. So 2005, me and Eric were living together. He was at the height of his drug addiction. We were both partying together. We kind of default lived together because nobody wanted to be around us, and we were best friends. And we're like, hey, if nobody can handle us, we can handle each other. That was a great idea.
I like that. Nobody can handle us, maybe we can handle each other.
Yeah. He had just gotten out of another rehab, and I had already been arrested, and I was like, well, let's keep each other clean and sober. And that lasted about 6 minutes. And we just kept partying, doing drugs. And one night I was at a bar, and I was living a very reckless life. I had no self-esteem at all. I just had no real purpose in life. I was lost. I was self-medicating, and I ended up getting into a bar fight. This was 2005. This would have been November of 2005 was when all that happened. Yeah, in Rockford. So yeah, like an hour or so outside of the city. And I get into this bar fight, which is kind of, you know, status quo. I'd been back and forth to jail for little stuff, fighting and all that. And get into a bar fight. I end up hitting the guy one time. He was really drunk. Him and a buddy of mine were like bickering back and forth. And then I stepped in to break it up. The guy swung at me. I hit him. He fell back and was knocked out. And that was just kind of it, you know. And I go to my car, I go to leave, and all his friends he was with kept screaming, he's a cop, you're in a bunch of trouble. And I was like, what do you mean he's a cop? Well, he's an off-duty police officer. Like, you're in a ton of trouble. And I'm like, oh, okay. Why didn't he say that before it started the fight? So anyway, the cops come right away. I just stay there, put my hands up. I'm like, yeah, I'm the one that hit him. I didn't even think I was going to go to jail, because he swung at me first. But I end up going to jail. I'm there for a few days, and I'm like, man, why hasn't anybody bailed me out? So I call my dad, and I'm like, I'm sitting in jail. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, are you teaching me a lesson or something? Like, can you bail me out? I'll pay you back. And he's like, well, the guy you hit's in the hospital. They don't think he's going to make it. And then it was like real, and I was like, I really screwed up this time. Maybe a week later, I get out of jail, and he's doing better. They think he's going to pull through. Then another week later, he dies.
Oh, man.
And I'm sitting at home. I find out on the news. Like, I just got the news on at the house, and my face flashes up from my mugshot, and they tell this story, and he ended up passing away.
From just head trauma?
Head trauma, yeah. So what happened was he fell back and hit his head, and the actual fracture of his skull happened in the front. So they kept trying to claim that I hit him with a weapon, even though I didn't. I hit him in the jaw. But we had to, hire experts, that show when there's an impact, it doesn't always, like the trauma doesn't always happen where the impact is. Like the force can come around, meet in the middle somewhere, and that's where the trauma happens. And that's what happened with him. He hit the back of his head, but the split from the energy of that hit cracked the front of his skull, which ultimately, is what killed him. So, trying to handle all that guilt of, contributing to somebody losing their life.
How old were you?
I was 22.
Oh, man.
I was 22 at the time. So then, I get arrested again on a first-degree murder charge. So they charged me with first-degree murder and manslaughter the second time. So then, again, I sit in jail for a week or whatever it was. We hire a lawyer, and then he says, do whatever you can to bail Tony out. You got to, if we're going to go through this trial, we want to, prove to the jury that Tony isn't, this monster that the media is, putting him out there to be. So I get bailed out. And then, a year and a half later, I go to trial. I mean, there was no, they weren't going to let me off of, any plea bargain or anything. Like, they literally just wanted me to go to prison for the rest of my life. The state had a ton of pressure on them from the police department and the community. So I ultimately went to trial. It was a 2-week trial, and I was facing life in prison, and took the stand for 4 hours the last day of the trial, and ultimately was found not guilty, and I was acquitted. So I was a free man. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
self-defense is what they call it?
Self-defense. Yeah.
He had swung at you first.
Yeah, which was proven by, all the witnesses too. And the only reason they could charge me with first-degree murder was saying I had a weapon, and I just simply did not. They were just pulling at any string to get me to go to prison. And, we talk about, how fake media is and social media and all this misinformation out there. And there was so much of that when I was going through my trial. Like, I saw it in real time about myself. Yeah. Like, there was, stuff written about me in the newspaper every week. There was stuff on the news every week that simply wasn't true. Yeah. There was police reports of character witnesses that were telling these crazy stories that never happened. There's people that took the stand that had stories of that night that didn't happen. And it's like, you really saw how fake the media could. I mean, I saw how fake the media could be at that time very early in my life, and then was skeptical since then. But found myself, in June of 2007 is when I got acquitted. And then by the end of 2008, I ended up moving out to San Diego and just starting over. And when I look back at my life, I don't even think about 0 to 25. I really don't. And maybe it's something I'm just like putting out of my mind, but I truly feel like my life started at 25 years old when I went out to San Diego and I started cleaning up my life. And I started my first business out there. Most of my friends I have today are all people I met out there. I don't hang out with a lot of people I grew up with. There was just a lot of bad influence in my life and just a lot of trauma. And, I haven't been back to Rockford only a couple times since the day I moved. And it's just kind of out of sight, out of mind,
A reset.
I needed a reset so bad. Yeah.
What does that reset look like when you moved to San Diego? What happened?
So I go out to San Diego. It was at the height of the housing market crash, which we talked about. It was in 2008, and I was a residential electrician at the time. So I blindly go out to San Diego with no money. I had $3,500 in my pocket. I get a small apartment by the beach, and I'm like, I'll just figure it out, And to be honest, the day I woke up in San Diego after driving out there, was the happiest I'd been in my whole life. Like I had no money, no plan, no anything, but I just felt like this new lease on life. And I remember I wrote down, you're always one step away from greatness. That was the first thing I wrote when I woke up, because I was just like feeling all this energy. And that's how I've like lived my life ever since. And I just kept, I worked nights at a grocery store, was the first job I had out there. I was, anything I could do to get by. And I was walking onto job sites like, hey, I'll sweep floors for $10 an hour. They're like, we're still laying people off. Like there's no construction work, no nothing.
Is this after the episodes with you and Klein partying and doing a bunch of drugs together? You had kind of cleaned up from all that?
Yeah. The partying and all that was literally from 17 to 22. I get arrested, I go to jail. It wasn't completely over after that. Like once I did get acquitted, like that first year, you would think like, you're all happy and relieved and all that and everything's, sunshine and rainbows, but I fell into a crazy deep depression. It was like post-traumatic stress. Like I was so focused on staying out of prison for the rest of my life that once that was over, I was like, damn, I almost deserve to go to jail. Like I'd almost feel safer there or something. Like I just felt so vulnerable. My mind I had so much anxiety, and I kept drinking, and it kind of came to a head where it was almost like an intervention. My boss at the time, my parents, and one of my good friends, Cal, was like, we got to get Tony out of his apartment because he's going to drink himself to death. So I moved in with my buddy Cal, and then got a dog to keep my mind off of stuff. And it's something so simple, but that really started helping me heal because I could focus on something else other than myself. And once that happened and I decided to move to San Diego, that's when I really, stopped drinking and partying and doing all that. And I just started focused on, how can I be successful? So, working nights at a Food for Less and like doing anything I could. And I was going to all these great interviews. I could interview really well. But every time they ran a background check, they see 4 felony arrests I'd had in the last couple of years. And they're like, well, we can't hire you because of that. So I ended up responding to an ad on Craigslist. It was a gig job on Craigslist. And this guy was starting a bicycle shop in San Diego. And he just said, I'm looking for somebody to come build 10 beach cruisers every morning before 9 a.m. for $100 cash. I was like, perfect, because I'm working nights at this grocery store. I can run over to this bike shop this guy's starting. I can build these bikes, be home by 9 o'clock, and have a couple $100 for the day. And so he hires me, and I start working, building these bikes. But within a week, every single bike I would build was getting sold by like 1 p.m. So he's like, shoot, this is like a business. He's like, I need to hire you full time. So I worked for him for that entire summer, and we were selling, 20, 30 bikes a day all summer. And it was out of this, I shit you not, our bike shop was the size of this room. Like it was this little office off of like Garnett Avenue in Pacific Beach. And, we sold like 3,000 bikes out of that little place in the first year. And then he bought a house that he was flipping. And with my construction background, I basically said, let me help you flip this house. I won't charge you anything. And for next summer, give me some equity into the business. And that's exactly what happened.
You traded labor for equity.
Traded labor for equity, yeah. And that was kind of and I pitched it to him like, hey, I can easily do what we're doing here. I'm like, I could quit on you, open another shop across the street and do this. I said, if we want to do this together, here's my plan. And it worked out perfectly. And, we ended up partnering up after that, opened multiple shops. A couple years later, flew out to China, went straight to the source. We were talking, we're buying all these bikes from LA. We're driving up there twice a week in our box truck. Like if we're buying it from them for, $115 to sell at our shop for $200, what are they getting them for? overseas. So we go over to China, go to the Canton Fair, we go to all these factories, we end up picking a factory to work with, start importing our own bikes, and then at the peak we were selling 5,000 to 6,000 beach cruisers a year. Wow. Between our shops and distribution.
A piece of that equity of that business.
Yeah, we were 50-50 partners in that business. Wow. And it was great. It was a great run. I learned a lot. There was a lot of ups and downs. COVID happened. We had the best year we ever had. Everybody needed to get outside and wanted bikes.
COVID helped your business.
Oh, tremendously. Yeah. So May of 2020 was, well, I guess I'll back up a little bit. Like right when COVID happened, they were shutting everything down. And this is out in California where they shut everything down. Like there wasn't even outdoor dining or nothing for like a year. Like they were shutting stuff down. So the minute the shutdown happened, we knew other bike shop owners that were getting shut down. And then all of a sudden on the news, they say, bike shops are essential because of transportation. If somebody doesn't have a car, they need to ride their bike. So bike shops can stay open. And we had like almost 2,000 bikes overseas just sitting in containers that we could ship over. So we ended up shipping all these beach cruisers over to San Diego in hopes that, people are going to still be buying bikes. We had no idea. But it was a risk we took. We're like, let's just get all these bikes over here and, just to have them here in case we do sell them. And once they got into port and got to our warehouse, like literally overnight, the news went from saying everybody's out of toilet paper to everybody's out of bicycles. And May of 2020, we sold 1,600 bikes out of our one bike shop in 30 days. Wow. Which is insane to even think about. We had a line around the block. I was literally standing at the front door and I was like, how many people in your party? There's 3 of you. How many bikes you need? 3. All right, you guys got 7 minutes. Go ahead and buy them. And I'd let them in. They'd be grabbing their bikes, go to right when they got to the register. How many in your party? Okay. Like all day long for basically that entire year. Yeah. So we were just printing money through COVID. My COVID experience was great. Like I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't wear a mask. I didn't get vaccinated.
You're not a mask wearer?
No, I know it's a big surprise to you, but I do not conform. And my life didn't really change that much. I hate to say it because a lot of people's lives were ruined, but I was a business owner. I didn't have to do anything they were telling me. So I didn't really do any precautions. I just, kept it cranking at the bike shop and made a ton of money. It was a great time in my life.
So you did the bike stuff. Now I'm assuming real estate is the next play for you because you haven't gotten to that part yet. What does that look like? How did we get into the real estate with Kleiner?
Yeah, with Kleiner. So me and Klein had a falling out, after, my murder trial, and then he ended up, he was still using back then when I went to San Diego, and I lost touch with him, and I was just like, I need to cut everybody out of my life, including probably mainly Eric Klein, because we were so bad for each other. And but like 6 years later, after I got the bike shop going, I was successful out there. I got a voicemail from him randomly, and it was just, hey Tone, it's Klein. I'm in San Diego, got your number from Cal. If you're still out here, give me a call. So I call him and he's like, yeah, I'm at this hotel in this place called Pacific Beach. And I'm like, I own Pacific Beach Bike Shop, dude. I'm like, I'm looking at your hotel right now. So we meet up, have a cigar, and just kind of hit it off like,
No drugs,
no drugs, yeah. No drugs, no drinking. We had a cigar and he was telling me about his business he was doing out in South Florida. And I was telling him about, the bike shop and the business I had. And ever since then, we probably talk every single day, And, he lost his last business, and I was, through COVID, my business was great. But then right after COVID was kind of the same time his lawsuits were winding down. And we were talking through the whole time, and I'm just like, man, I'm ready to get out of California. Like, this COVID thing, the bike shop did great, awesome. It's going to start tanking now. There's so much inventory out there. So many people bought bikes during COVID. I can see the writing on the wall. So I'm ready to get into something else. So we were throwing ideas at each other and places we wanted to move, and finally one stuck, and it was wholesaling. And it just made sense. And he said, let me get some leads and see if I can and close a couple deals. And if I can, he goes, do you want to, me and Shiloh want to jump into business with you? So that's exactly what happened. He got some leads. He started closing a couple deals. He was sending me his recordings. I was trying to wrap my head around it. And then he's just like, Shiloh wants to move to Raleigh, North Carolina. We'll open an office and us three will grind it out. And that was, that was the beginning of it. And I just said, all right. I literally packed all my stuff in San Diego, which I'd been there for over 13 years, had a very successful business out there, and, took the chance and risk and drove out to Raleigh. I said, I'll give it a full year and see if we can get something going. But, within 3-4 months, we got something going, and then ended up selling the bike business and cutting ties with San Diego altogether, really, and just kind of went all in. And 3 years later, here we are. Yeah, we scaled the business like crazy.
Well, let's talk about those numbers.
Yeah.
For years, because I've been in this industry a while. I've never seen anybody do the numbers y'all have done. But for you guys that watch the Klein podcast and you just hear the story, there's a reason why y'all don't have operators, y'all don't run businesses.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those numbers.
Yeah. So, we've done, over $7.5 million in assignment fees in 3 years, and we're continuing to do better, every single year. But it was, we started in May of 21, and, by, I want to say September or October of that year, we were already doing $300,000-$400,000 months. So it happened really fast. And, Eric is, the sales goat, as we all call him. Here's another thing that people don't know about Eric, and I said this on my podcast with him recently, where not only is he great at sales, and there's a ton of people really good at sales. I think I'm a great closer too. It's just a different style. But what he's underrated for is his marketing mind, and I think his, the way he looks at marketing, and his sales process together was giving us so many, opportunities. And I just said, all right, I'm getting a ton of deals sent to me. I better figure out how to get really, really efficient and really good at dispositions, which is then assigning these contracts. And, I got all the best software and platforms and the best processes in place, but there wasn't a lot to learn from, Eric didn't know anything about dispositions. I didn't know anything about dispositions. There's not a lot of disposition training out there. We would go to these masterminds and events, and I'm all in on dispo at this point, and I'm like, what are the kind of the tricks of the trade? What are the KPIs? What do you guys look for? And everybody's just like, yeah, we just kind of have a buyer's list. We send it out on that. We'll put it on a Facebook group, and that's kind of it. And so I kind of had to come up with a lot of stuff from scratch and just trial and error. But we talk about what does it take to be successful? And I think the number one thing is taking risk and not having that fear cripple you. And I think the second thing is really coaching and having a good mentor. So you're not going down a path where it doesn't make sense and you're wasting time and money. You're guessing. You're going to waste more money and more time by not having a coach or a mentor. So you might as well cough up whatever.
Repeat that for the audience. A lot of people do not understand that concept.
You will 100%, and you have a way better chance of failing without a good mentor or coach, but you will 100%. It'll take you longer. It's gonna cost you way more time, way more effort. It might destroy your relationships around you because it's such a struggle doing something without a proper mentor or coach.
They're gonna lose the money in mistakes.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't understand that. So you created this, I would say proprietary system because you started from scratch. But you were in the weeds all day, every day.
My God!
Because you were in that office grinding out 8, 9, 10 hours a day for a long time.
7 days a week, yeah. And that's the third thing it takes to be successful is you got to get your ass to work. It's so frustrating, when and I'm sure you can relate to this because you've been doing it a lot longer than me, but when somebody hires you to coach them, right, or they're on your coaching calls or anything, when somebody's giving you money for you to teach them something, and then then, a month later, you're asking them what their numbers are. Oh, I locked up one deal. I did this or that. And then you say, well, how many dials are you making? How long are you working? I mean, to be honest, I'm working 1 day a week. And you're like, well, then you're not going to be successful.
I told Patty, we sat down the other day, because I'm on the phone all day long.
Right.
We did the math on how many calls I take a day, and we multiplied that times 8.5 years. It came out to 206,000 sales calls I've been on. Mm-hmm. Right? That's a lot of reps. Mm-hmm. And when people want to know, like, well, how do you get good? Why are you so good at real estate? Reps.
That's all it takes, yeah.
You build unconscious competence.
Yep.
You build that programming in your mind where you've established all the different routines in your mind, and you don't have to think about it. It's like, how do you tie your shoe?
Yeah.
You just tie your shoe.
Yeah.
You've done it so many times.
Yeah.
A lot of people understand that concept. They want the fast, quick.
Well, and you hear it too, because they go, how do I get to where Chris Rood's at? And you tell them that 206,000 reps, and they're like, well, but how do I really get there? It's like, no, I'm telling you it's just hard work. I know it's a tough pill to swallow for some people, but it is just hard work. You're absolutely right. I mean, I've been on the phone so much, and previously in person, I've sold millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of bikes. To thousands and thousands of people, and those conversations and the processes I was coming up with there relates 100%, on any sales, any product. So all those reps, it's like when I'm on a coaching call or, with somebody's community and somebody throws out an objection they've heard, I can come up with a rebuttal on the spot, and people will be like, dang, that was really good. What'd you say again? I was like, I don't remember. I just made it up.
Yep.
Because it's like you have that skill. It can go into any objection, anything, because you have the reps, like you said.
You just said something. You have that skill. Mm-hmm. And what most of you guys don't understand is that a skill is developed over thousands and thousands of reps.
Yes.
You don't just like, oh, okay, I'm good at this. People are naturally talented, but they still develop that skill.
Yes.
And man, that is the secret sauce.
Yeah, 100%. Like you can, like with the scripts too, like the dispo scripts and the sales scripts we have, like somebody can sit down and get a deal. Right? Just reading a script, it can happen. I've seen it happen where somebody can sit and read a script and get a deal, but you're not going to get the tough deals. When it comes to negotiation and all that's it just is going to take reps till you can get there. You can follow a sales process and get sales, but if you want to get great, you got to put in the time, and you got to hear a million different conversations and variations and different personality types and how your tonality changes with that person versus this person, and digging into the pain points and third party stories and all that goes into it. But it's hard work. Nobody
wants to hear that.
Nobody wants to hear it. It's really hard. You got to work every day, but it does pay off. Like, what's a lot harder than working every day and getting successful is not doing that and being poor and struggling your whole life. And people don't realize that. They look at, somebody like you and they say, God, Chris works his ass off. Like that's a lot of work. That sounds like a pain in the ass. And then you look at them like, man, you're struggling to go get a sandwich. Your car's broke down. How are you going to get anywhere? You don't have any money. Like you can't go on vacation. You can't go out to dinner. That to me is a way harder struggle, but they can't see the forest from the trees.
I think because they made straight A's in school, they're supposed to be straight A's in life.
Yeah.
Real life ain't school, folks.
No.
School is a facade of what reality is.
Yeah.
School is a prison for kids.
Yeah.
They don't teach any real world skills.
Not at all.
When's the last time you used calculus or algebra?
Never.
Right? All you need is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, and percentile.
Yeah.
Really, that's really all you need.
That's really
flying to the moon. Dude, skip all that other bullshit.
Yeah.
In the real world. Learn some skills.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. The world's so backwards and upside down. But Tony, you have kind of mastered the dispo and kind of branded yourself as the dispo king here, which we have a mastermind tonight that you're going to be speaking at and giving a lot of value on that, your process. Let's get into, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of your process, because that's, they can reach out to you, and find that they can hire you as your coach. But for you, as learning from all these new skills, how has that how has that changed your business from when you first started to where you are today, as far as how proficient you are? Because I've watched you did it fast. Two and a half years. I saw you at a mastermind. You were just trying to learn this. You become the authority. How did you do it? I mean, we kind of talked about the reps, but is there some proprietary? I'm kind of talking circles here, but
no, I get it.
Let's give them. I want to give them some value on how you're selling your deals, but I don't want to give it.
Yeah. Well, and we don't have time to do that either. We'll be here for 3 days. But what I can say is in 2021 when we started, like we said before, it was a lot of order taking for, big buyers and hedge funds and stuff like that. But what truly mastered my process is when the interest rates went up and it got a lot harder to sell a deal. Like that was the best thing that happened to me in this industry. And that's when I really dialed in a process, because what happened was I was actually out in California finishing the sale of my bicycle business. And that was, just for a couple weeks, but that was kind of when the interest rates went up and all my buyers weren't buying anymore. And we had a bunch of deals. We had 20 something deals sitting in our bucket where we couldn't get rid of them all of a sudden, where a month ago we could make one phone call and get rid of a deal, or one email or one text message. So it got a lot harder. And my entire dispo team just got up and said, yeah, this is way too hard. We're out of here. And they got up and left. And it's not like we'd only been in business for a little bit. So it was, it wasn't like they were, long lasting employees or anything. So they kind of get up and walk out, and I'm out in California. I'm like, all right, I got to get back and get to work. And I end up going back to Raleigh. Everybody's panicking in the office. We got all these deals, how we can get rid of them. I ended up selling like 16 deals in a couple weeks by myself. And it just went back to getting the dials and getting the talk time and showing the value to the buyers of these deals. And from that point forward, we got, real KPIs in place. I'm like, all right, in a tough time, how many dials was I making, this last month? How much talk time was I having this last month to get rid of these deals? And it was really like 40 to 50 dials a day. I was having some days I was on the phone for 4.5, 5 hours, to sell 3 or 4 deals in a day though, but that's what it takes. And so we started coming up with real KPIs, and then just a wider net on how we can find more buyers for our deals. And instead of being stuck with your 5 best buyers in a market, or your hedge funds in a market, like if they're not buying anymore, like we saw with everybody else that was just selling to hedge funds, they're all out of business. Yeah. Like you cannot be one-sided with your buyers. You have to look at your buyers list as, I need to grow this thing every day. There's new buyers every day. There's new investors every day. We know that. And it's usually the new investors that are going to pay more for your deal than a seasoned guy, especially in a down market. The seasoned guys are like, yeah, I don't know. I got 20 deals on the market right now. Let me sell some of those first, and I'm going to lowball you on this one. But the new guys getting in, they almost don't know any better. And if you ask anybody in real estate that's successful, hey, how did your first deal go? Most of them will say, I didn't really make any money on it. It took me a while to figure it out, because they're paying too much for it. They're not as savvy. They're not on everybody's buyers list. They're buying stuff off the MLS. They're using an agent that doesn't give a shit about them. They're just worried about their pockets. So I started creating a process where we are now front-ending this deal where it's hitting so many buyers the first couple of days, where we're using Investor Lift, our buyers list. We're skip tracing tons and tons of new cash buyers and their agents on every single transaction. They get phone calls, they get text messages on our deals. We're hitting so many people in the first couple days that it's like, if it doesn't sell to this list that we have with all the emails, the texts, and the phone calls, day 3, we're listing it on the MLS, and we're going to find one of those new buyers that's going to pay top dollar for it.
Yeah, and you're going to be training tonight on how to list it on MLS, which is, I know what you're doing now because you did a coaching call with me, and it's super, super ninja and cool. Mm-hmm. Totally legal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And for you realtors that follow and get upset, listen, nobody made you be a realtor. You chose to be a realtor, so don't get mad at the investor, the wholesale and flipper that make all the money.
Yeah, somebody commented the other day. I put a reel out about a deal we made 158 grand on, and it was a realtor that was like, shame on you for stealing equity, blah blah blah. I'm like, didn't the realtors just get sued $300 million for stealing equity? You know.
That's what I tell her, because I get that too. You just go around stealing people's equity. I said, please explain to me how stealing is agreements from parties that are okay with it and know what you're buying for. Stealing is them not knowing.
Right.
If they agree to it and they sign, that's not stealing. That's called business.
That's business. Yeah. You want to make money? Yeah, that's business. Yeah. And I think just realtors, not all of them obviously, but there's a big majority of them that were sold some false goods on becoming a realtor, and they thought, hey, I get my realtor license, I'm going to be making money, I'm going to be making commissions, and they turn into property management. 85%
of them are broke dicks.
Yep.
That is the statistics. There's usually 2 to 5% of the realtors in every market that clean house.
Right.
And everybody else gets the leftovers and make less than, I think that I read it was years ago, with my 2 or 3 years ago, the average realtor makes 17 grand a year.
That's insane.
Yeah. So don't hate the play or hate the game.
Hate the game. Hate the fact that you're not taking action. Yeah. If you can't beat them, join them. If you see somebody making 158 grand on one deal, then try to learn from that person and say, if I'm making 17 grand a year and this dude's making 17 grand a day, how the hell do I do what he's doing? Yep. Like, that's what separates success from successful people from unsuccessful people.
Yeah, you just don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And to go back to the process and the MLS, it's, I'm like you said, I'm in the weeds. I'm still working every day with my team. I'm not living at some, house up on the hill looking down at everybody. I work 10 hours a day, and when I see things change or I see something I can implement, I do it and I test it and I see if it works, and then I bring it to the community.
Well, you're ahead of the curve. Like, you're in the game, like you're in the weeds. Like I said, that's why you're the most believable. That's why you guys follow me. I say that I bring real entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I don't bring flashy gurus taking pictures in front of Lambos the past 8-9 years, selling digital products and running ads on Facebook.
Right.
That's all internet marketers.
Yeah.
Not real, true blue entrepreneurs like you and me, who are in the weeds every day, taking calls, that know the game.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a difference, guys. You got to understand that. There's a big difference between internet marketers and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And me and Eric were just had this conversation the other day where we were kind of going through all the sales coaches and all the gurus and everybody that teaches in this space. And we're like, out of everybody we know and everybody we've met in the last few years and everybody that's teaching, how many of them actually have an operation? And it's very few of us. You're definitely one of them. And it's like, those are the people you need to be drawn to. Yeah. If they can't, if Chris Rood cannot prove to his community he's done it before or he's still doing it, like, you shouldn't be teaching it. Yeah. And there's so many people out there that cannot prove what they are teaching because they've never done it.
Right.
Or maybe they did it 10 years ago and it was, easy for them then.
They did 15, 20 deals and started a course.
That's which is insane.
Yeah. And guys, for you guys that follow me and understand, Tony and Eric's model is different than what I teach. I teach backyard wholesaling, and I call it hybrid, where I partner up with people across the country. Leads come in the office, we quarterback them. Y'all have what's called a call center model.
Yes.
Which is the most scalable from a revenue standpoint. You can really drive up those numbers. So understand that difference, guys. They teach a call center model.
Yeah. We teach, we're not the people to come to for the stuff that you teach. That's for sure. It's totally different. If somebody came to me like, hey, how do I develop land and raise private money, and how do I flip at the scale you have? It's like, that's not me at all. We're sales guys, and that's our background, and that's the business that we scaled, and we're really, really good at it. And, but the other side of that coin is I want to get where Chris Rood is at right now, and that's why I learned from you.
Yeah.
It's like,
and it's a progression, right?
It's a progression. Yes.
That progression, raising private money.
Yes.
After you wholesale, then flipping, then buy and hold, then development.
Yeah.
And eventually lending, right?
Yes.
But, we talked a lot on our way here when we work out this morning, and, we talked about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because at the end of the day, it's the wildest thing I've seen. And when you think about why, you understand, but entrepreneurs are very, very different than the average, cut and dry W-2 guy that made honor roll in high school. Mm-hmm. He wants to play it safe his whole life. He wants a 401k. Needs a W-2. He's made it if he makes $100,000 a year, $150,000 a year's job. Mm-hmm. He's safe.
Yeah.
Right.
Safe. That's the word for it. Yeah. 100%.
Like me and you, my story. I know your story. We talk about client. We talked about this. We're a little off.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I think everybody will agree.
Absolutely. Right. So, at 22, I was in rehab too. I was wild and crazy, just like you, black sheep. None of my family would talk to me more. Patty was about to leave me. I was just crazy. But the cool thing about that is if you can find and own you're crazy and you're crazy, if you're a young guy, maybe 22, and you feel like, man, I'm just off, I don't fit in. Because I'm sure you didn't fit in.
No, with almost nobody. Yeah.
If you are like that and you have this extremist mindset, because we are extremists. I've been to enough masterminds, I've listened to enough billionaires and guys worth hundreds of millions of dollars talk. These guys, like clockwork, have either had a learning disability, labeled ADHD, ADD, dyslexic, all these mental supposedly disabilities. Dude, that's not a disability.
No.
That's a gift.
Take it, use it to your advantage.
Yes.
We did talk about it where it's, what makes somebody successful. And the reason so many entrepreneurs have that kind of backstory is because they've been through the grind of being addicted to drugs. If you'll do anything to score your drugs while you're broke, take that energy and obsession and put it into something positive and being successful, and you're gonna do well with that mindset. You just got to shift it from the product. Like when you put all your time and energy into something, into getting high, if you just stop that and shift it into making money, those are the people that do so well. A few things, they're not scared either, and I always say that it's like, how can you be scared of starting a business or changing a process or making sales or jumping on calls when you've been through it? Like if you've been through drug addiction and murder trials and addicted to crack cocaine and all that, and you came out on the other end, is it scary to start a business? To me, it's just not.
And I told you this on our ride home. I said, I believe a man more when they've been down in the bottom of the barrels and came up more than a man that had no vices.
Yeah.
If you have no vices, you probably have no virtue, right? Because you've seen the opposite side. Because you go from one extreme to the other. And the most virtuous men I know had the worst vices and were, at some point very self-destructive than a guy that just hangs out in the middle.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All my friends and people close to me have a crazy backstory. And I believe because of what you just said, it's those people that appreciate where they're at today and they value it. That's why we see, all these people that win the lottery end up dead in 12 months.
Yep.
They don't deserve that money.
They can't handle it.
They can't handle it because they know they don't deserve it. They don't appreciate it. You give somebody a free coffee, they're more likely to drink half of it than if they paid for it, they're going to drink the whole thing because they have something out there. They have value in that, and it's the same with coaching. It's the same with life. It's the same with building a business. If you don't put in the grind, the hours, the money, the time, the sacrifice, you're not going to get to where you want to go because you're not all in on it, and you're not going to see that delayed gratification because you don't have enough into it to deserve it.
Yeah, and it's healthy. And I don't advocate blowing yourself up in business, but it is healthy to have been through damn near bankruptcies.
Yeah.
If I can say that now at 43, I almost went bankrupt when I was 25, and again when I was 34-ish, when the markets pulled back hard, and I was like, fuck, this really fucking hurts. But you extract so much wisdom, lessons, things you don't want to ever do again, and just that no teacher in school, no professor, no college can ever train you on, because it hurts like a motherfucker. Mental pain is worse sometimes than physical pain.
Yeah.
And you and Klein have been through a lot of that, and threw yourselves in the weeds, build yourself back up.
Yeah.
And now you know where you don't want to go back again.
Yeah, in life and in business. You know, when you hit those ups and downs, you learn so much. That is nothing that can be taught in a textbook, or to a teacher that, you know, took the easy way out, went to college and works half the year and bitches about getting paid $50,000 a year. You want to make more than work a full year. You know what I mean? Like, how is that person going to teach you the skills you need to be successful in life? They've given, I mean, I hate to talk shit about teachers, but I mean, they've given up, you know, on being successful by taking an easy job, and then bitching about how much money they make when how many days off does a teacher get a year? And plus the summers, and you're trying to teach somebody to be successful. It's the wrong person. And that's this whole shift, you know, with education. With as much as we know about these colleges now, and how much money they have, and how corrupt they are, and how much you have to pay to go to college, and you're sold this, you know, shitty bag of goods to where you get out of college and you're still making minimum wage. That diploma doesn't mean shit.
That's a scam.
It's a scam.
Let's talk about this real quick. I read an article, and I could be wrong, don't quote me. I think it was $1.7 trillion with student debt that can't be paid off.
Right.
Average kid getting out of school right now is strapped with college debt. You know, he's trying to get a mortgage for a house, trying to start his family. He can't even afford to buy a house and move out of his parents' house. I think don't quote me on this too, I think I read the average person right out of school nationally is making like $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
Dude, if you're making $60,000 a year, like, you can't buy a house.
You're broke.
Start a family. You're broke.
You're broke.
So I'm telling you guys this because, you know, I think there's a big shift coming to the world at large, in America for sure. And that real world skills are coming back. The blue collar trades are coming back. Actual sales skills are coming back. They don't even teach sales in college, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Is that not the most?
It's crazy. Yeah. The way you're going to make money is in the trades and in sales. That's it. Like, that's truly it. Unless you do specifically go to college to be a surgeon.
Yeah.
But what percentage of people are doing that?
And let's say, I'm not advocating don't go to college, but you should only go to college if you're a nurse, engineer, doctor.
Very specific.
Chemical engineer.
These fine arts degrees are worth shit.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
people just go to college because they don't want to either, you know, get into the real world, or they're just told they have to go to college. Like, you know, most of the people do that, and then they get into debt, and it's like, man, how much money could you have made during those 4 or 5 years instead of being in debt? You could have worked at McDonald's for 5 years and been better off than going to college most times.
And then, Tony, the next most bizarre thing to me is that, you know, we're both in the coaching space. When I'm trying to tell somebody, hey, look, I'm going to show you all the skills I've learned for the past 17 years, being a professional real estate investor and being an entrepreneur for 22 years total, you know, for $5,000, right? Oh, dude, that's so much money. Oh, my goodness. Oh, how do you get away with charging so much? Okay, well, how much money you spend on your kids' college tuition? Oh, well, we spend about $120,000 to go get a job making $65,000 a year.
Yeah.
But they won't give a guy who's actually has skills, who has a track record, who has the net worth, and the lifestyle, $5,000 to come to a mastermind. It's utterly bizarre.
But why do you think that is? I have an idea, but why do you think that is?
Programming through television and societal norms.
It's programming for sure. I think it's two things. I think it's exactly that. And I think it's a little bit of, like, with social media and YouTube and like being a personality or a brand out there, people know how successful you are in you know, that you make a lot of money. And there's this disconnect with somebody saying, man, you know, Chris or Tony, they have all this money. Why are they charging me $5,000 when they're already rich? And it's like, well, what do you think these colleges are way richer than we're ever going to be?
That's right.
They're worth billions of dollars. But like you said, it's a programming thing. And it's like, yeah, the you wouldn't pay me if I was broke.
Right.
So the reason I have all these skills and I'm charging for it is because I have been successful. And I think you're absolutely right. I think there's going to be a huge shift where 10 years from now, maybe, I think, well, it's happening now, but I think for sure 10 years from now, people are going to look at college as a thing of the past.
Yep.
Because everybody who's successful is going to learn first from YouTube and social media and get an idea of what they want to do, and then go to that person and pay them to teach them to skill up and be the expert in that field of whatever they want to do.
It's become obsolete. It's become absolutely obsolete. And to piggyback, we'll start wrapping this thing up. You know, we've talked about, you know, skills and, you know, developing real life skills. For you, how important has mentorship and coaching been for you? Because I know you live and breathe what you say, because I've watched you. You've come to a couple of my masterminds.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched you and Eric deep dive personal development, deep dive mastermind, deep dive coaching. You hired everybody, and just like I did, I have $1 million in personal development.
Yeah.
My wife's in race. She knows that.
Yeah.
That she needs that money.
Yeah.
But when I was 22, I wrote a check that I borrowed from a bank, got a loan for $25,000 to do a bunch of coaching at 22 years old.
Yeah.
But people think that's crazy, but you know, how much leverage has that given you hiring all these coaches?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars into coaching in the last 3 years. I've had a mentor for years and years, about 20 years on and off, but very specifically the last like 8 or 9 years, who I pay to kind of life and business mentor me, who's known me since he was one of my old football coaches, who I've paid for almost 20 years. That's been a very consistent thing in my life. But whenever I want to learn something, I don't want to take the stairs. I want to take the elevator straight up to the top.
So
and
good.
I'm
repeat that. That's so good.
I don't want to take the stairs. I've done it in the past, and I know how long it takes, how grueling it is, and how many mistakes I'm going to make on my own. So when I have something I want to do, the elevator costs whatever it costs, but I know that's going to be returned to me tenfold, because I'm going to learn faster. I'm going to make the connections. You know, we talk about learning from our coaches and the mentors and stuff, but it puts you in the room too. And you know, you can make so much money in these rooms, you know, and I say it at our masterminds, and I know it happens at yours, and it happens personally, where it's a lot of money is made by the people you meet that are either somebody you're paying to help you coach or to help coach you, or the other people that paid the same amount. Those people are on the same wavelength as you. And when you're in these rooms with those people, you are going to partner up on deals. You're going to make money. You're going to learn from each other. Like the community, it helps, you know, in learning and in relationships. And it's a no-brainer. Everybody you know that's super successful will tell you the exact same thing. It's not bullshit. If everybody does it and it works for everybody, it's got to be true.
Last question. What does an ally mean to you?
Oh, an ally. I love that, you know, the first mastermind I came with, you were talking about friends and allies, right? And it did stick back to me, like thinking about the friends I had growing up, you know? And it was like, yeah, these guys didn't give a shit about me. You know, they didn't care. They thought I was fun because I was so wild. But, you know, the minute I went to jail and all that heat was on me, 90% of them fell off. Nobody called me. Nobody checked in on me. Nobody came, you know, to my trial. Only like one friend, you know, my buddy Kyle came to my trial. Everybody else was kind of just absent. They're like, oh, let Tony get through that shit. Once he gets out, we'll start hanging out again. So an ally to me is, you know, the relationships I have with you, with Eric, my business partner, somebody I've known for 20 something years, where it's like they have your back in the good times and the bad. You know, we're all going to go through good times and bad times, and it's easy to have all these people around you when you're cranking and you're making a ton of money and they see opportunities they can have with you. But it's another thing when you hit those hard times, who's calling you, who's checking in on you, who's trying to bring you up, who puts that trust in you because they know who you truly are, and vice versa. You got to do the same. When somebody's going through something tough and you truly believe in them and you're their ally, you're going to go and pick them up and say, hey, dust it off. We all go through this shit. How can we get back on track? So that's what it means to me.
Love it, man. Yeah, guys, y'all got to get away from your cool friends, your friends that you think are cool. Listen, there's no value in being cool. There's no value in hanging out with somebody because you think they're funny. There's no value and, you know, hang out with a guy because he, you know, helps you chase her. Well, there may be value when you're young in that.
Sure.
But you guys know what I mean. The real value when you becoming a man, when you becoming an entrepreneur, is trade of value. Mm-hmm. It's trade of value and how you can truly help a man. You truly help a man when you help that man make money and you support him and he to you.
Yep.
And you're trading value and you're supporting each other. You and Eric are best friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Best friends.
Best friends.
Because y'all are allies. Because you help each other survive.
Yeah, 100%.
That's what an ally is. That's what a true friend is.
Mm-hmm.
You guys that are 20 years old hanging out with a bunch of bullshit people because you think they're funny and they add no value to your life, wasting a bunch of time.
Yeah, if somebody's letting you self-destruct, and they're even participating in it, that's not a friend.
Yeah.
You know, that's somebody who's as damaged as you are, and you need to get away from that person and start healing yourself. And that's exactly what an ally is. It's somebody that isn't going to be around you if you go down that path. If you're in that place right now, all those people around you that are with you, you need to get away from them to get out of that place.
Yep.
They're not going to be the ones that help you get out of it. You know, so
love it.
Yeah.
So Tony, we wrap this thing up. You know, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah. So the Tony Mont on all platforms. Mostly Instagram is where I'm most active, but I'm doing a lot more YouTube content. I'm doing calls and stuff on there. So it's the Tony Mont on YouTube as well.
Reach out there if you want coaching on Dispo.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just DM me, and it is me that gets back to you. A lot of people are always like, "Is this a VA or something?" I always do like a video like, yeah, I'm DMing you. I'm not that important. Like it's me, you know? So yeah, just DM me on Instagram, the Tony Mont.
Yeah. And guys, I'll put my stamp of approval on Tony. He's the real deal. If you need training on Dispo, this is your guy. I mean, he's over here giving me and my team and my audience training. You know, I'm skilling up through him, right? You know, I'm humble enough to know if I don't know something as good as another man, I want to be around him, right? So I highly recommend you learn the Dispo side from him. He's going to show you how to do stuff with your deals that you just can't get on YouTube. And if you want to come out to one of our masterminds, you know, next mastermind is in Nashville. Tony will be at the Nashville mastermind also.
Yep. June
19th and 20th. You better meet him there. And then we have a mastermind at my house here in Louisiana you're going to be speaking at tonight. So appreciate you guys. You know, keep skilling up. That's all that this is about. It's really, really about a journey of personal development and working on yourself, man. Working on yourself longer than most people are working on themselves, and you will outshine and outpace everybody if you just don't quit. So see you guys on the next episode. Peace.